Okay, just in case.
There we
We're
go. All
here.
good.
Yes, it's again the Mimi Show with Howie Zuo, chemical engineer and emotional intelligence coach, and the brain and behind Thriving Turtle. And we were getting taken off of the live for a second there, but we're back. And I had asked if you could explain to us a little more about harm reduction.
Yep.
Harm reduction, yeah.
hmm Yeah.
Okay.
So harm reduction for me is wanting to provide to the best of the ability, knowledge, expertise. Um, hmm Oh
Okay.
no,
So
it
you're
froze
so
again.
it's oh. Oh, that's all right. I
Do you
see.
think
I
it?
see you, and my
Do you think you can
situation
try
is
move?
keeping
Let
it.
me try moving everything.
Okay, because maybe closer to your router.
Oh, sorry about this.
It's okay. It's okay. This is why we know we're live. Things happen live. Um,
Oh,
and
the
I can
router's
still see
right
you
behind me.
moving.
That's why I'm like so weirded out. That's
Wow, that's okay. Well, you're right behind me, and I mean, not behind me. You're right. You're right in front of me. Looking. I mean, it's a little bit blurry, but it's. You're not stuck. You're
got
not
you.
stuck. So
Um,
I had stated you're the founder of Thriving Turtle, and I wanted to do it right. So I wanted to say
mhm,
say it verbatim. An organization focused on education and harm reduction, aiming to build
mhm.
diverse and inclusive communities. And so
Yeah.
when you're saying harm reduction is pretty much just education, societal
It,
education.
Style education, knowledge education, even you know, specifically harm reduction. That's more specific to cannabis or psychedelic space for me, for
Mm-hmm,
mental health,
mm-hmm,
and you know, it's for me, it's blending the multiple parts of me. One is my education and background's engineering, so clinical data science research, I love it, right? At the same time, there's huge shortcomings. It's politicized. If the data's, like they did 50 college age white dudes, right? That's not inclusive, right?
mm-mm.
Um, people who's funding, these research. Can people even access this research, right? Like sometimes I'm even like, this is hard to read. What can a layperson do about it, right?
Right.
Um, and also like every person's different, right? Everyone has their unique story, experiences, genetics, you name it, right? And so it's impossible for me to be like, hey, I read this 100% applies to you. There's
Yeah.
got to be some level of, we got to do an investigation of how much this applies. Some of it we may have to do in real time. But the thing that I bring table is, you don't have to do it by yourself. You can have some hand holding during this process.
Mm-hmm. And when we say that you're an engineer, it's chemical engineer, correct? So
Oh man, did it
my
freeze
understanding
again?
is no, I still have you here. Can you hear me now?
And
Are is your is
oh,
your the chemical
okay.
part of is not happening over there? Oh, he'll be back. This is what happens when we're live and we're doing it from our bedroom. We do best we can. One day, y'all, we'll have a studio and we'll have all sorts of technologies that will make none of this happen. We will have very little to no technical issues. In the meantime, we're waiting on him. So I'll just go ahead and tell you a little bit more about him. Uh, so the Thriving Turtle is like a program that he created where he mixes the education that he got, which is in chemical engineering, with um, uh, with his love and oh, here he is. Here he is. Here he is. He's back. He's back.
Is this
Yes.
any
So you
better?
yes. Oh my God. Oh my word. Yes, this is where we should have been from the beginning.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So
So
when you do exit, don't close your browser for at least 30 minutes so that all this can just upload smooth.
Sounds good.
Uh,
Sounds good.
so in with the Thriving Turtle, you say you're mixing your background of your education with your passion for people. Is that what I'm saying? What I'm hearing? The emotional
Yeah.
intelligence and all.
Yeah. Like, my education is chemical engineering. My first, 10 years of my professional career was in some form of engineering or IT. It's only, thanks COVID that I investigated my own mental health, went down that journey, discovered my own neurodiversity, right? Like went to engineering school. Everyone's looked the same to me. Nothing's
Mm,
weird. I worked in engineering. Everyone felt the same. Nothing weird. It's only when I existed outside of that space where I noticed. And
mm,
so, this is actually not uncommon where people are like, yeah, I made it as far as I could till I couldn't, and now I have to do the inner work sort of thing.
mm. That's a hard part. That's a hard one. And I can
Yeah.
say, I mean, I can say, I want to say, I just started my inner mental health journey, inner work, about maybe 4 years ago, and I feel
Hmm.
still like I'm brand new into finding out not what's wrong with me, but what makes me tick, things
Yeah.
like triggers.
Yeah. I
Oh,
love how you put it. It's not about what's wrong with you. You're just getting to know yourself better, right?
right. But we're also
Yeah.
not perfect, and that's something that as in my culture and as women they tell you like no seas cafre. That's
Yeah.
like don't which sounds like carefree, but it
Yeah.
just really means like don't be like of the street, like be
Yeah.
educated and speak a certain way. And there's this
Yeah.
in my family and in the people that have raised me, this idea that your behavior as a young lady must be as of a lady. But then
Yeah.
there's some times where I should have stood up for myself, or I should have done something about a situation, and instead I decided to quiet, be a lady,
Yeah.
and see. I didn't like that.
I mean, I love that because even what you said, can you hear like how much shame was loaded in? You can't be this, don't be this, right? How much classism is it? You have to be a lady, right?
Be a
You have to be
lady,
prim and
yes.
proper, and it's like, well, who who defines that? Is that to your benefit, right? And I don't want to say like one's better or worse. I'm just saying like, hey, as long as we just accept each other for who we are, show respect, make the space to, be inclusive, then it's like you do you, boo, right?
Right, right. Yeah, you do you, boo. I recently had a situation where that I'd never had before, where the my internet spaces were being somewhat negative,
Mhm,
coming from an outside source. And this was my first time
mhm.
dealing with uh, a person that's not happy at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I had to encounter it myself and see, well, how am I going to handle it? And I don't think I 100% handled it great, but it was my first time. And how do we deal with that? Knowing, like, how do you give grace to people, knowing that a lot of situations, this is probably the first time they're ever in a fight, or they're ever in an argument of this kind. Like,
Mhm,
what can we tell the people that can be used as a tool
mhm.
when it's an angering moment,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
has to do with what you got going on?
Absolutely. Like, first of all, very sorry, people bringing not nice energy to you, right?
Just
Um,
trying to learn here. Like, I
right.
might have made a mistake of how I answered.
And so, like you said, to give yourself the grace. It's your first time, man. I had to learn how to poop in a toilet. I had to learn how to use a spoon. I had to learn how to walk, right, ride a
Right.
bike, and you fall your ass, right? Like, just because I'm a grown ass adult doing it for the first time doesn't mean I should stop giving myself the grace that involved with
Mm-hmm.
doing something for the first few times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, especially as adults, right? There's very fewer brand new ass things that we've never experienced before, right? And so we hold these expectations. Oh, well, I'm an adult, right? I should be able to do it. And I'm like, no, this is my first time. I have the coordination of someone's first time.
Right.
And or you if if I wouldn't look at like a 5-year-old kid, if I would be like, come down hard and be like, you screwed up the first time, that's on me.
Which
I'm
a
the
lot of parents do.
right.
I
And
was raised in that way, even when I was little. Come on, Miraida, vamos a ver. Come on, like as if
yeah,
I was supposed to know better. And then as a mother, I did that to my child for a while, and then I
yeah,
realized, oh my God, this is a new person.
yeah.
Why am I
and and
doing that?
and that's where you gotta, be able to discern. Like, for example, in the example you brought up, when people bring negative energy into your space, that's on them. That's 100% on them. That was
But yet,
something
what is
compelled
my
them.
reaction supposed to be as a proper or appropriate? That's where my dilemma lays when a negative energy is brought to me or
Mhm.
brought to one. What is the appropriate reaction
And
for one?
so one, I'm going to express a duality, right? I don't want
Okay.
to ever say there's a right way, because that
Okay.
implies perfectionism, right? I will say
Yes.
there's like an ideal way. And if you're not there, that's okay. That's, like I said, it's the practice. We got to build up there, right? And for me, the ideal ways, I'm just like, man, I'm sorry that you shit happened in your life, or you didn't get the support or love in your life that made you the person who you are, and you didn't get the opportunities or resources to grow, explore, heal, whatever. And that's just a reflection of, the environment you're in. I don't know where you're born. I don't know where you live. You had, good parents or something, right? And so I just feel like really bad, right? For me, I don't want to demonize other people. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
rob them of their humanity. And the more
Right.
I paint them as a human, I'm just like, man, shit sucks and I'm just sorry, right? And I can let it go so much easier when it's like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, that's a good tool. Just accepting what is as it is what it is, and it sucks how it was, and but we have the power to either let it go or make a change for next time it happens, if it happens again.
Right.
I mean, it's considering it's the first time something happened. I guess there's a possibility it can happen again.
Yeah. And
Um,
and to give yourself grace, right? This was the practice, you know. So the next time you go like, the first time I had these big feelings, and maybe you just needed to take a breath, step away for a second, and then come back to
yes,
it, right?
yes,
But you had to feel the big feeling the first time to know that a big feeling comes at all.
yes. And then I'm on psychoactive medication. So when certain things happen, I either just don't react because I
Hmm.
can't, or I don't react because I see that if I do, it might go too far.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up medication, and even to give yourself compassion and kindness in that, right? Like, maybe
Right.
you're having a good day, medication walking around. Maybe you had a good meal, you've been treating yourself right. Maybe you've been bombed at work, and it's
Yeah.
hard to keep your head afloat. Shoot, women's health hormones play a huge role, and
That part, our
that shit
hormones,
ain't even
girls.
studied well, right? And you're
It's
really like,
not.
we have to explain the correlation. I'm just like, people are just trying to get by,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So give
I want to give love. I want
compassion.
to give love, and I want everything to always be okay. But I don't want to be a control freak, and I do want to give that space for if you don't agree with me, do it. But then how much of that is okay? It's like you said, between hormones, judgments, and just trying to do the quote quote right thing by the moment.
Yeah.
Uh, can I ask you about mushrooms and cannabis?
Hell yeah. I'm, like I
Okay.
said, I'm here for harm reduction.
Okay, so what is the correlation with mushrooms, cannabis, psychedelics, and the thriving turtle?
So one of the hats I wear is a facilitator for both of those medicines. And so I'll be very clear. If you view these substances solely as recreational,
Mhm,
I'm there with you, because it's not my relationship. It's your
mhm,
relationship, right? I'm here to support people who are trying to navigate. They want to have a relationship, and more specifically, they want to have a therapeutic relationship. And I I took a training for Oregon program, so they legalized mushrooms for mental health. Colorado's had it. I think New Mexico is about to pass something. It's winds of change sort of thing. But anyways, like what I was saying is like I just want people to do it safely.
Hmm.
That's all I care about. It's their relationship, right?
And this came to
Microdose.
you
Hmm.
during the recession, during the 2020, after
Hmm.
you had already graduated. It's when you put together these parts and came up with the thriving turtle. Am I right?
Hmm. Yeah. So I had I was working remotely, and my company was like, "Hey, we want you to move locally to Texas," and I was just like, "Nah, I like where I am in California."
Eh,
Um, and so for me, that was like, "Oh, I got to figure out what to do with my life." And the one thing I knew was I didn't want to go back to like a corporate.
right.
And I want to be clear, it's not to say I think it's good, bad, whatever. It is definitely saying I didn't fit it. And that was the big thing.
You
Um,
made your own lane. You made
mhm.
your own lane, which is another tool that we can use in feeling neurodivergent and whatnot, is just making your own.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
the fear, anxiety, shame associated with that, right? And I'm not, I'm not pursuing this field because I want a lot of money. I'm not gonna, I know I had to make peace with like, hey, I just want to make enough to get by and then some to have some, nice things, some rainy day
Right.
funds, whatever, right? Um, but I looked at myself and was like, man, I love doing this work. I feel good, right? Like if if you need sliding scale, or sometimes if I keep a little bit of fund for people who financially struggling, right? And it's like if you need to tap into it, I'm happy, right? I just want you to feel like good. I want you to feel supported, and I would do this work
This
for
is
free.
very new, but I think I've talked with another person here on the podcast, that the aids and guides during a psychedelic or cannabis journey is going to be like nurses. That's how
lead, lead
it's like nurses.
right? And that's from very more formal clinical perspective. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna be very clear. I th- I think there are pros and there's definitely cons. Biggest pro is, if someone has a bad reaction, I would want more support for them. I would, because I could never argue, hey, I want less support, right?
Right.
And it's also
When you
not
say
my
bad
relationship.
reaction, do you mean like a bad trip?
For some people, it's a bad trip, and pin that topic. I don't believe in bad trips. I believe in really
Oh.
hard as shit trips that will make you
Oh,
feel a lot of things.
okay,
But
okay. There's no such thing
I,
as a bad trip.
but
Got
I
it.
don't believe in a bad trip.
Okay.
Um, some people, some people just, for example, have allergic reaction to mushroom, the item.
Hmm.
It's not even the psychedelic part. Just then
Hmm.
I'd be like, yeah, we should get you to a hospital. Allergic reactions. I have a bunch of allergies. Allergic reaction really hurt. Some people, it's they have psychosis and things like that, and I'm like, yeah, I still want you to be in a hospital where they can make sure your blood pressure is fine, make sure you're okay, have resources, right? um, but again, it's when I'm facilitating, it's the overlap of what's my risk profile, what's your risk profile, right? There's some people who be like, I'm gonna go to South America, do a ayahuasca journey in jungles and
That's what I
forests for a
wanted
week,
to do.
right? And I'm like, that's cool.
But
Maybe I'll get there one day, but if you ask me today, right now, I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot for me, and that's okay, right? Um,
did you ever see this as a part of your journey at being a person that helps people with their emotional intelligence and their life as a life coach, and having psychedelics and cannabis be an assistant to creating these perspectives in people?
I
Did you
I
see
did
this
not
ever?
I did not see this, but I tell people I started the coaching side of the business for a very selfish reason, actually, which is I'm tired of living in a shitty world where people are suffering. right? An easy example is, I'm a huge mental health advocate. I'm a dude, right? And how prevalent loneliness is.
Mm,
And I'm not saying you don't have people in your life. I'm saying, do
still,
you have one person? Do you feel safe enough to be like, man, I'm going through some shit. This is like real shit. This is not like my car broke down. This is
right.
like, oh man, I feel inadequate because I just got laid off my job and I got a family to provide for, and I'm freaking out because I don't know, and I'm spiraling because I love my family and I give a shit, and I was taught to be a good man and I did the things by the book and I'm still fucking it up,
And it didn't happen. Yeah.
and it didn't happen, right? And I'm just like, yeah, that fucking sucks. I don't want to fix you. I just want to know that if you need some support, I want to give you that space.
Right.
If your support is, I just want to say this out loud so I don't feel alone. Yes, right. If it's, hey, I want to be brave and ask for help, be like,
Mm,
can I borrow $50? Can you be on the lookout for a job for me? Right. Like,
right.
I'm not here
Some
to,
people just need a friend, and that loneliness shit is really crazy. How you can be and feel alone, and still know that there's numbers in your phone, but you can't call them.
it's
And
that
there's
feeling of safety. Right.
yes,
And
that's what you want.
something I really discovered very recently, I mean like less than 2 weeks, right, is there's a huge difference between I feel safe and I'm not in danger, right?
Hmm,
Most people exist in I'm not in
not
danger,
in danger.
right? And I'm taught from a shit ton of privilege, okay? Like I know I live in a generally safe space. I know I have means to put food on a table, roof over my head, right? I know that my health is decent right now, right? And I'm grateful for that. And I know people are struggling with that. And if you're struggling with that, shit's valid, okay? Never gonna say anything wrong with that. Um, but to feel safe is to be like I said, is like, oh, I'm struggling, and I can
Mhm.
express in the world, not hold in my head.
Right. That's
Right?
important. I think for men, I've seen it. I mean, I'm up there in age, and I've met a lot of gentlemen, and it seems like there is no safe space for man, for masculine, to be soft and still be considered masculine and
Mhm.
strong. And a lot of gentlemen find this in, say, their girlfriend sometimes.
Right.
And we as women aren't completely equipped to handle what that's
Yep.
like, because nobody ever told us, or at least not to me growing up, your man or your boyfriend or your husband might go through some struggles, and you need to be there. You need to support him, and you be the strong one while he gathers himself again. These are things that aren't taught, I guess, to little girls, or to as a teenager or a young lady that's growing up and gonna eventually have a
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. Welcome
I think that's
to the
really important.
patriarchy, right?
Oh my word, is that it? Ah, damn.
Yeah, because as men, we're taught if you got feelings, you gotta deal with it alone.
Right.
You can't let the insides affect the outsides. If you ask for help, you shit, right? You're not worth anything. Girls won't like you, right? You're weak. You're
Hmm.
gonna, that competitive, throw in some capitalism of like that competitive environment, right?
Hmm.
And if throw in some, generational trauma, scarcity mindsets, right? If you're not first or you last, sort of thing. My that was very true for my parents who lived through the Cultural Revolution in China, and sometimes they'd be like, you ever seen those videos of like older Chinese people and they're like rushing to the front of the line to get something, and people like make fun of that, and I'm just like, yeah, because historically, if they didn't do that, they just died. That's not a great feeling. So yeah, they did everything they could, and they never unlearned the habit because it was core part of their survival. And so why would they think it's a bad habit? And
Right.
that's an example of giving grace of like, oh, they learned that and they taught that to their kids. And it's very unfortunate, but at some point we got to do the labor to be like, you know what, we live in some forms of abundance, right?
Right.
Like I said, I got enough food on the table. I don't have to fight for free food. I don't have to
See,
fight to
and
get.
you mentioned that already. I just want to say you've mentioned that twice to three times. Plus, I saw it on your website. I believe to have survivor's remorse. Do you have survivor's remorse?
In many ways, for me, I had to process like, why do I, this, I'm holding this like, why do I get to live such a good life? I have struggles for sure right now, right? Shit sucks, but like I have a good life. My parents sacrificed so much to, live so that I, make it so I can live in America, right? And all those things. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I don't fit in sometimes. I don't know if I'm grateful enough for the shit that I have in front of me,
It's that survivor stuff.
right?
I
Like,
feel that I get the same feeling, and I feel like I need to. And in my upcoming, I try to do a little mushroom trip at least once every 2 months or so. But my next trip, my intention is going to be to attack and enlighten myself and find within why I feel so bad when I'm doing so well.
mhm. and
Like I've
and that,
had points in my life where I didn't have food, I didn't have anywhere to live, I didn't have anything to eat. I was asking people, to feed me. I was getting donations to clothe me, and then now that I don't need any of that. That I can go and I can order it delivered to my home, but
mhm.
I know that there's people with problems, and I know that not everybody can do that. Like I was actually told this. Some a friend of mine is like, you have survivor's remorse, and I had to go look it up, and I'm like, oh snap.
Yeah, and I want to put out there, something I navigate is, especially as a neurodiverse person, many of us are wired to have higher empathy than
Mm,
average, and that's good thing or bad thing. You can make arguments for both sides,
okay.
but a lot of people who are, just, you may notice them as they're like very sensitive to the energy in the room, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
sensitive to what they consume, whether it be media, scrolling, whatever, right?
That's me.
And trying to be cognizant of it or create a culture around it, because as a neurodiverse person, I live in a world that's not designed for me. I live
That's
in a
right.
world that's trying to be more accommodating. It's not necessarily doing a good job, but in America we can talk about it, because like in places like Asia, there's like mental health is it's not real, just
Really?
push harder sort of thing, right?
Okay.
That that trope of like, I walked uphill both ways to school in the snowy
The
mountains of
tiger
Himalayan.
moms
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
that
yeah.
idea of this pushing further, push you harder if you're not doing what's
Yeah,
good. There's no weakness that's
yeah,
being uh, coddled. There's no
yeah.
coddling.
It's
Yeah.
unmanaged anxiety. That's all I see it as.
Oh, unmanaged anxiety.
And
It's worry.
it's coming
Worry.
from a good place. They want the good things for their kids, but I also can hold the duality of like, you want a good thing, you're expressing it in kind of a not great way, and sometimes harmful, many
Mm,
times harmful,
many
right?
times harmful, because then that's where trauma comes
Right. And
from, especially as we're growing up, is in how those situations were handled.
so many, especially people of color, who have some sort of narrative like that, and then as an adult they're like, I got to earn love.
Mm,
If I don't work for it, I'm undeserving.
mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Mm.
what? And this is a struggle for me too, as I've been through this. Like, if I don't do enough, if I'm not productive enough, if girls will
I'm
leave
not
me.
worthy. I'm
I'm
not
not
worthy.
worthy of love.
I'm
And
worthless. I'm worthy.
it's reinforced in culture, it's reinforced in dating scene, it's reinforced in dating apps, right? And it's such a shame that it's so reductionistic of people.
Hmm.
And it's
And that it puts it a lot on the women to carry the emotional baggage of
yeah,
relationship and whatnot. It's like
yeah,
you're the emotional one. Man can't be emotional because he's got to be strong, but that man is going to get weak at some point, and your
yeah.
strength is going to have to be the one that covers it. I wonder
And
how we can teach that. I wonder where you can, like, how can that be inserted into actual culture? the not babying of men,
Hmm.
you
But
know.
let me, I'm gonna call myself out on this. I have definitely been guilty of using, female friends of mine growing up, all the way, as pseudo therapist.
Mm.
And I had to, I actually talked this out in my own therapy with a paid therapist whose one job is to, work through this shit. And my therapist, she's great, and she said, I hope you can extend yourself some kindness and grace, that you were trying to meet an emotional need. You
Mhm.
weren't doing it in the best way, but you're also a kid who was not getting guidance from your parents. And so I can't time travel and change any of that. I can only work with what nouns, right? And so for
Right.
me, I had to navigate, like, well, what's getting in my way? For example, one is
Inner
like
work. And it
inner
sounds
work,
like inner
right?
work.
So one is like, oh, boys, boys to men have always been competition. So I've never felt safe.
Mm.
And there's the cultural, and it was like, if I was vulnerable and went to them with my struggles and just ask, hold space for me, they're going to make fun of me. They're going to make me feel bad about it. So why would I want to open up to them, right? And
And they will, because that's what's expected and that's what's taught.
right, and so
Get your weak ass on or whatever. Like,
exactly. And it's like, when I hear that, it's like, oh, you didn't have permission to have your feelings
to
held too.
feel.
And that's, you're reinforcing your patriarchy, or you're reinforcing your trauma. Hurt
Yeah.
people hurt other people, right? And so for me, it's like, well, how do I find spaces like, therapy? It's because
Yeah.
the consent is there, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like, if you got a good homie or friend to lean on, if it's, I work with cannabis, I'm like, if you really need a joint or a CBD or whatever, just so that you can feel good enough so that you can speak
Manage.
about it,
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, argue against
Right.
it. Other
Right.
dudes, other dudes do with beer at the bar. It's not
Oh my
that
gosh.
great, right?
Yes. Yes. I
And I'm
get it.
not
The vice,
here,
using a vice to cover
right?
is
I'm
a,
not
is
here.
a
I'm not here to bring judgment. I'm here to be like, hey, if that's what you need, let's start there. If at some point later you're like, hey, I don't like this relationship, I'm leaning too hard on it and I feel addicted or something, I'd be like, let's talk about it, right? If you want to be mindful and you don't want to even approach that, then I'd be like, let's talk about it, right? It's
I
about,
recently talked to a lady, and she was not protesting. She said not protesting. She said she was planting seeds of knowledge and wisdom and love. She was with a sign outside of the Farmer's Cup,
mhm,
pretty much against cannabis, saying that this is not going to heal you. It's not going to provide you with peace, that you're looking without and not within.
sure,
Uh, and she didn't see a benefit to to it. And as I listened to her, because I just was there to provide her with a microphone, speak your
yeah.
piece. I didn't judge, and I didn't go back and forth with her or whatever. But what do we say to people who see cannabis and mushrooms as vices like alcohol?
Mhm.
Because she put it right there next to alcohol. She's like, or the bud nor the bottle.
Yeah, and so, it's a space to be real, not live at the extremes, not be me
Okay.
versus you. Let's live in that middle gray zone and be like, are there people who use substances, crutching, harming themselves, avoidance? Hell yeah.
Sure.
I'm never going to disagree with that, but it's not my relationship with it. So for
Hmm.
me to put a blanket statement out there says, I
Mm.
know every single person's relationship with the substance, and that is just
Oh
not
wow.
happening, right? That's my
Yes.
ego. That's bullshit. That's me projecting my values. And then I'd be like, yeah, if you can really definitively tell me how every single person's relationship with it, then
So
you
that's
should
what
be
she was
doing the
doing.
work.
Was she was
You
blanketing?
should be doing that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the capacity to just be a little open-minded and be like, hey, maybe there's space for me to be wrong. I'm not arguing with
Oh,
someone who's logical.
that's hard.
I'm arguing with someone who's fixed in their belief. And so for
That's
me,
hard for people to say they're wrong though, or
yeah,
accept.
because we again, we attach shame with being wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? We attach you're less than, you're a fuck up. You know, a lot of people scarcity mindsets, perfectionism is a very common thing, right? Um, you even yourself, you know, you said I have to be a lady, and the second I'm not a lady, people are gonna drop me
Yeah,
down,
you're
right?
cafre. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm just like, yeah, but at the
It's the
core of
gray
it,
area. It's living in the gray. That's
it's living in the
what you
gray,
just
and it's
said.
also
That's what we want.
adding judgment.
Uh,
And I'm like, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong,
yeah.
but why should I listen to you if you're going to make me feel bad?
Mm.
I have no incentive to listen to you. Are you going to punch me in the face until I listen to you? Who the hell
Right.
are you?
Who are
Right?
you?
You're not my mom. And if you were my mom, we'd be like, this is kind of a problem.
Like,
Right?
right. You're just a stranger who has a blanket statement,
Right?
and even if it has a good spirit behind it, it's not correct, and it is creating a judgment of those who actually do benefit from these things. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the loneliness part?
Oh yeah, we'll go back to that. And you know, it's like I said, it's, you know, we'll tie it in so much shame, so much judgment,
Hmm.
so much self-judgment. And you know, we as people have powerful imaginations, which means we can go to the worst place possible.
That's right.
Right? And so you know, it's very you know, I'll speak, you know, from a men's side, it's very common to be like, oh, if I be honest and vulnerable, my community, my social circle, they're going to reject me. They're going to see me as weak, and then I'll actually be lonely. And it's, I, you know, a lot of people are like, I'd rather bottle it up but still have
Or
my
play
friends, still have my
or
homies.
play the one
Yeah.
that's got it all together.
And I don't think, you know, a lot of people don't realize is just because your skill set of bottling is really good doesn't mean your feelings
Yeah.
aren't there. And just like, you know, any bottle, you know, soda, you shake it up, it's a when, not if you eventually is going to explode. And you know, especially with men, men are socialized, you know, what feelings can you show? Really, it's, you know, the most common quote unquote negative, and you know, though I don't believe in negative emotions, I just believe ones that are harder or challenging, right? But negative emotion a guy can show is anger. Not
Mm,
that it's good, but socially you see an angry guy and it's like, right? You see a
yeah.
guy crying, oh my god, how bad are they going to make him feel?
Vulnerability is a situation in the patriarchy, like you said.
Right? And so if you know, there's a feelings wheel. I encourage anyone to look it up, right? And it's like you have the feelings, but you have more terminology, more specificity of feelings, right?
Hmm.
Because you know, when I say, oh, I feel good, did I get a good massage? Did I eat a good meal? Did I have a nice walk? You know, did, you know, someone who loved me hug me? Those all feel good, but they aren't, you won't say those are the same, right? Those are all very
No.
different feelings of good.
Yeah.
And so feeling bad, same thing. Oh, I'm feeling
It's
bad. It's like,
different
well,
feelings of bad.
I feel disappointed. I feel weak. I feel hopeless. Those are very different feelings, right? I stub my toe and it hurts, right?
Yeah. So when you help people uh with uh with your program, and you help guide them through psychedelic trips and the use of cannabis to handle life's
Mhm.
feelings that that they need to work with, what's your, like, do you ever feel like, okay, there's an is there an end to the program? Is there a, you graduated? Is there?
Yeah, absolutely. I always want people to feel like is the goal is for you to end a relationship or conclude a relationship with me. I want you to feel like you came to me, we equipped you with knowledge, tools, um, trust, belief, whatever, so that you can go out on your own. I don't ever want to be like, oh, you got to go with me to rest. That feels scammy to me. Okay, that's number one, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and you know, the end goal is to heal, or at least get to a point where you can cope and manage and tolerate whatever you're going through. You know, I'm a subscriber to Gabor Mate. He's a researcher, expert in this field of like addiction, and he sees addiction as a health issue,
Hmm.
not a criminal issue, right? And it's
Hmm.
people who are addicted they're trying their best to heal or numb a big pain inside of themselves, and they chose not the greatest way,
Hmm.
drugs or addiction or whatever. But can we make a person feel bad about trying to feel good or just feel less shitty? Are we going to really demonize people for trying to feel less shitty in a hard ass life? I'm like, hell no, life is really hard.
Yeah. But there are those people though. There are
Who?
those people. And I wonder often when I see those kinds of people that demonize people that seek help,
Yeah.
or that call them names or think whatever in a negative way. Like when are you perfect? Like, do you really have
Exactly.
everything?
And so that's, a lack of ego, or a lot of ego, and a lack of
Hmm.
compassion, right? It's like,
Hmm.
oh, look, I avoided using drugs and I don't have addiction. I'm
Right.
better than you. And I'm just like, I feel bad for you because something in you was taught that you have to put down other people to feel good about yourself. And I feel
Hmm.
bad at some point you learned that lesson. And I wish at some point you unlearned that lesson and learned something better.
I had a gentleman tell me, or I don't know if I could call him a gentleman, but he said to me that I'm using my handicap like a crutch, and that he's been through hard things and he's still and he's not used to saying, I don't have this, I don't have that.
Hmm.
uh my approach to it, or the beginning of the conversation, was um I it, to be vulnerable. It was at the beginning of starting this podcast thing, and I
Hmm.
was feeling lonely because not every time I can go out and spend money.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what can I
Very real.
do that could still be a me thing, and I
Yeah.
can meet people and still talk to people? And I had told him, I'm like, I'm looking for connections and friendships, and just a good experience with another human being. To
Hmm.
which that was the rebuttal was, well, I'm only here for work, and that's some weak shit. You're using your handicap as a crutch or whatever. There's people that still have it hard. You're living nice, and here come all my guilt. Because this person couldn't fathom that I was telling them a truth.
Yeah. And I'm sorry that happened to you. And for the person who said that to you, I feel sorry because
That's
I'm
the part. So we just feel bad for them. That's what we're doing. When we get attacked, we
yeah.
feel bad for the attacker.
I
Is that
well,
emotional intelligence?
for me, it's because I don't want to add anger in the world. I don't want to add
Mhm.
hate in the world. I don't want to add a division of you versus me and we're going to do this. We got plenty of that shit in the world already, and it's not doing us that much, right? And so,
That's
you know,
right.
this is very personal to me. It was just I just don't want to. I don't know if I'm going to add good in the world, but I just don't want to add on the other side,
Bad.
right? And
Yeah.
so, when I hear that guy, I'm like, I'm sorry somebody taught you, that your needs or your struggles weren't valid. I'm sorry that
Right.
you didn't get the support that you wish you had. I'm proud of you that somehow with all that lack of support you still
Have the
made some
gusto.
definition of success.
Right.
It's your definition. It's not, again, not mine. And that's just how I would leave them. I'm just like, I'm glad you did it, but I hope you can understand I'm not you.
Mm,
That's the only thing, is to understand I'm not you.
I'm not you. That's right. Can I ask you? Well, I had asked my Instagram if they had some questions and or for you, and I did get a few. One of them was, is there a difference between mushrooms grown in a lab and those grown in the earth? Because apparently she gets anxiety with the ones in the labs, and she wants to know, is this a thing?
And then I would say, if I could tell you there was a difference, would it change anything?
I guess for her, she wouldn't eat those, no? She wouldn't eat the
and
ones in the lab. She would consume
and,
only the ones grown on the earth.
and then I would say that's her relationship, and if that's what she needs, I'm
Ah,
all for
okay.
it, right? You
So
know,
the
we
experience is what's the judgment. Not there's no blanket of truth with the
no,
difference. Okay.
you know, like from a very clinical scientific, right? Um, the placebo effect is a real thing, right?
Okay.
You give people a sugar pill, you tell them it's a drug that will fix something, they take it, and for many people,
It
it
works.
shows improvement, right? And so, you know, example with the person you said, it's like if they only want to eat earth grown mushrooms because it feels more connected to the world and it feels like it
Mm.
absorbed energies and feel natural, I'm like, that all sounds important to you. Hell yeah, I support you. That's
This is
all I'm
all
here
very
for,
personal.
right?
It,
And if
it
you're
seems like yeah, it's your emotional intelligence and it's all very individual and personal, and we have to. I'm gonna have to start looking at myself a little deeper and see, well, what are the things that I'm judging, that I'm putting
yeah,
blanket statements on.
right? And so for some people, I can see like, hey, I need lab grown because at the end of it, I want somebody to put a little bit of that batch into like scientific instruments so I know exactly how much active ingredient is so I can take the exact precise amount to get the experience that I'm looking for. And I'm just like, cool. I support you. Go for it, right?
Like you,
It's
yeah,
your
your
need, not
vibe.
mine.
Nice. I'm processing this. This is like a new thought place, a new little pocket of
Right.
where I need to run things
Yeah.
through. Is that it's all personal. There's
Yeah.
no blanket, whatever works for you, and that's okay.
Yeah. Building that trust with yourself that you can tap into, learn and understand your needs and
Hmm.
express them, right? You know, my footnote is like, as long as it's not harmful to other people and as long as it's not like generally harmful to yourself, I'm just like, it's not a problem, right?
Can I ask you another question that
Absolutely.
I guess is personal to myself? The With emotional intelligence, I'm such a big, I guess, I'm in love with that idea
Mhm.
of emotional intelligence, and I seek inside to know myself better and to forgive everyone ahead of time.
Okay.
Before
Yeah, well,
anything, there's already their forgiveness. This is for some reason the way that I've been recently been able to meet people,
mhm.
and is I know if they might, they might feel like they need to hurt me or say something, but I'm just going to forgive you ahead of time.
Yeah.
uh let's can we, or what would be a tool that we can use, or that I can use, or other girls can use in those moments where we go off the hinge, and we can see that we're going off the hinge? For example,
Mhm.
say sending long text messages to someone that's not texting back,
Yeah.
or again, emotional intelligence, or not talking to someone, or blocking them because they didn't behave in a way that was beneficial to us. What what tool can I use to, as a woman, to not be that way, to not say these mean things when someone's hurt me,
Mhm.
besides just forgiveness? Like, what tool can I do for me? Because I feel like forgiveness
Yeah.
is still outward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I'll first off say, not limited to women. Guys,
Men
gals,
do it too.
non-binary pals, everybody in this boat at some point, right? Um, and I would say this is, you know, when you're really feeling that energy, that activation, right? In a perfect state. And so if you hit it, cool. But if you don't, that's okay too, right? Don't be hard on yourself. And it's like, can you take a breath? You know, if you look in the
Before
world,
you hit
listen to
send.
podcasts, work with me, write it out if you want, but don't hit send. Just
Right.
take a breath and ask yourself, is this message reflecting the activated part of me or the whole me?
Mm.
Right? Because when I'll be the first when I'm angry, the first thing I was do is I want to get even, right? But I know the whole me was just like,
Like, yours is coming. Yours is
right?
coming.
or like someone cuts me off in traffic and like but then I'm like, do I want to be an angry person?
I
Do I
don't.
want to add more ill will into the world, more bad vibes in the world? I'm just like, no, and I don't. And
Mm,
so like when people cut me off, I tell myself a narrative. Tell yourself a story with like, I don't know the full story, and because I don't, I'm going to pick a story that helps me until I get a clearer picture. So
mm.
if someone cuts me off, I'm like, this person's got a
This is a
shit,
choice. This is a
right?
choice.
Right? They're desperately trying to get home, and they're trying to. That's why they cut me off. They got to take a shit. I've
Right.
been there, okay, right? And so I can have compassion.
Mm,
Some this person didn't act the way that I was hoping they would, and I would like take a breath. Why do I need to act? Why do I need them to act a certain way? Why am I trying to take control of someone else?
mm,
Am I okay if someone tried to tell me what to do?
right.
No. So why am I trying to do it? And then, you do that internal looking or something, right? Or you send
Wouldn't
that
that,
long text message.
can
Are you
someone
trying to be
consider
heard?
that bottling up your emotions if you don't express them?
I wouldn't, because it's the assumption that there's only one way to do it,
Hmm.
right? And then there's also, can you let it go, right?
Yo.
Can you, and it's, we talk about, you talk about forgiveness, right? Um, Sometimes forgiveness is for the other person. Sometimes forgiveness is just be like, I'm dropping the chain. We're not connected anymore. It's not a clean ending, and I'm just going to have to learn to be okay with it, because I want to do other things. I want to move on with my life. I want to surround myself with people I love. I want to laugh more. I want to have more fun. I want to go on a different date. Whatever it is, right? It's just saying I'm dropping the chain, and
Dropping
that's
the
okay.
chain. Yeah.
Because if
Not
you
really bottling it up or moving on, but it's the perspective of the situation. It's just having a different perspective
Yeah, it's like,
of
your
it.
time is limited on this world. Your energy is limited on this world. Do I want to keep pouring it, trying to chase something or someone that's not reciprocating back? Generally, no.
Hmm.
Right? If you're
Right.
having hard conversation, you definitely can, tough time having a fight with your partner, right?
Mm,
You can be pissed out of your mind at your partner, but you'd be like, I'm pissed and I'm going to honor it, but I still want to stay.
yeah.
And we're just here honoring the feelings. We're trying to communicate. We're trying to be heard. We're trying to understand each other's perspective. We're just angry. And so maybe it's like,
But
maybe
where
we
does
need to,
anger belong?
anger belongs to the table. You remember I was telling you, earlier, there's no bad feelings,
Right.
right? There's just harder feelings, tougher to manage feelings. And anger is like, a lot of it is like, oh, you wronged me.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I see where you landed. Mimi, you said something that hurt my feeling. I'm angry at you. I would like you to hear that I'm hurt.
Mm,
I would like to trust you and give you the space to see, what are you going to do? Are you going to acknowledge that you hurt me? Are you going to
mm.
try to make it up to me? Are you going to be like, just bullshit, deal with it? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Stop being emotional.
right? And I want to give you a chance, because I got my own shit, and sometimes it's shit I don't even know. Sometimes it's shit I haven't communicated to you. We just met, and I haven't communicated to you. You're not a bad person if you set me off. You didn't know that. But I'm also want to be like, hey, it's been real to me. Can you at least please see me? Just be like, yeah, it's real for you. I'm not gonna make you feel bad or worse or whatever. I'm just like, hey, what do you need? How can we make this better?
That's beautiful. We should all strive to be more like that. How can I help? How can I make the situation better? Um, Before we close it with a statement from you, I did want to say one more thing. I think and take advantage that I have you here.
Yeah.
I've been told that I'm too nice, and that when I do express my anger or express the negative emotion, that it comes out almost like it's evil. because it's
Okay.
concentrated. They're saying you need, and I was told, let it out little bits at a time. Have
Yeah.
like little moments of being mean so that when you, how do you do that? Like, am I going to get mad at things that don't matter so that the things that do matter, I can handle them right? What would make me an emotionally intelligent person that can still express
Hmm.
anger?
And so, my first thought is, it's going to be on you to be like, let's say it's 100, it takes 100 small things for you to get set off, right? It takes
Yeah.
100, maybe they're the same, maybe they're different, I know, but it takes 100.
Right.
And at 99, right, you're almost there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the reality is you have to start believing that the first thing didn't make you happy, didn't make you feel good. And you got to be honest with yourself. And the second thing, if you didn't address the first thing, now the second thing, you got to be honest. I got two things I'm not making feel good. Am I being honest with myself and being like, yeah, I actually don't like this? Am I
Yeah.
communicating it to the other people? Be like, I got two little things and I just don't feel great about it.
Right.
This is not to
Do you
say
think
you
this
need
is
to
where
fix it.
toxicity comes from? People that actually do want to be in those angry times, or can, or are often battling, or being mean, or do you think do you think this is just a lack of perspective and awareness?
No, that's too reductionistic to me. Like,
Okay.
going again, clinical research, right? For many people, and including it, or especially neurodiverse people, anger gets accompanied with dopamine.
Mm.
Dopamine makes you feel good. Have you ever, you yourself experienced like righteous anger? Like, I know I'm right and this person is wrong. They're on the wrong side of
Yes.
history,
Yes.
right?
Recently, and I wish I hadn't.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like that becomes a fuel,
Mm.
a
It's
self.
almost like we like it because of the dopamine.
Yeah,
And that's what makes a toxic person, is that they're just loving the dopamine that comes from
it could be. I think often, people will use the word toxic anger. I really don't even like the word toxic because
toxic.
it's judgment, right?
It
It's
is.
still judgment on anger. We're still
It
not
is.
accepting anger.
Mm,
And that fuels that person be like, I'm angry, I'm unheard, I'm
right.
hurt, and people are making me feel bad by calling me toxic. What's that
Do they
person
even
to do?
care? I think those type of people don't care what people call them because they're ready to just have, they're in their own, I would think.
And I'm like, yeah, that person probably doesn't care because they tried 10, 20, 30, 50 times and nothing changed. And they didn't know better. And we all didn't
Mm,
know better. Right.
yeah.
Whenever I see an angry person, I'm just like, what could you use in this moment?
Yeah.
Do you want a
This is
hug?
a choice. Yeah.
Or you shit,
Like, how can I help?
do you want to just sit on a, stoop and just be like, shit fucking sucks? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Vent.
But not, to be mindful, not get caught in the vent, but also how
Okay.
many people just don't even vent at all.
Right.
How many people
Because
are
of the
like even
sign of weakness that is of
how
venting.
many people are not venting? They're questioning their own reality. Is this
Mm,
shit really hard? Well, I don't hear anyone else talking about it. So it's either
right.
must not be hard and I'm weak and incompetent. I got to deal with it. Or is it we're all bottling it together and no one's aware that shit's hard and we're all struggling to get by and we're all
Mm,
not talking about it.
mm. I think you hit the nail right there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I actually learned that, um, from my friends who are parents. Right. I don't have kids myself, but from friends, my parents, they're so afraid to be judged
Hmm.
by their parenting or doing their right, doing wrong, or is parenting easy or parenting hard. And I'm just like, if you had one kid, this is your first go through. If you tell me sometimes you hate your kid, I'm like, yeah, that's reasonable. They've been crying for like 10 hours straight. I would also be incensed, right? And
Right. Right.
but everyone's like, oh, everything's good, do, and I'm just like, that can't be honest.
Yeah.
And if there's no space for honesty, that says to me there's not enough safety. to be honest. And if there's not enough safety, then I'm like, well, what can we do to bring more safety?
We need to make the angry people feel safe.
We need to make everyone to feel safe. Everyone's
Everyone
default
feels safe.
settings is trying to feel safe. We all go about it in very different ways, some of them not that great, but I'm not going to penalize people for trying to feel safe.
Right. Right. I feel it. I feel it really big for some reason with men, just because I know I'm extremely emotional, and I've seen the like you said, the anger is not a place for for the patriarchy to, to be in, and being or showing weakness, so to speak, as a man isn't societally accepted. uh I hope that through this conversation, and with your program, that we're able to spread more of that awareness of vulnerability and masculinity aren't opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Of they go together.
The way I put it is, if you ever played video games and you're fighting a boss fight and there's a big glowing spot where you're supposed to hit, right?
Yeah.
It takes nothing to hide that spot because everyone wants to feel safe. And so everyone's default setting is going to hide that spot. It takes real strength to be like, this is the spot. Check it out. I am going to give you the roadmap of where I'm hurting right now because I'm a real person. And if you
Yeah.
try to hurt me with that, you are not a nice person. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
You're just not a nice person.
Well, a
And
nice
for the
person,
people who
you need some safety and you need some love.
right, good,
Yeah.
good people in your life will be like, hey, you know what? And thanks for being honest. Thanks for being human and vulnerable. And hopefully, you build a community, be like, here's my glowing spot. And then we all go around and being like, hey, how do we make things so that we don't poke each other's, weak spots? And if
Mm,
we happen to poke it, how do we repair? Because,
right.
I don't want
By
to be
accident, not by searching for dopamine.
right. And even
Yeah.
it's like, hey, some people, I'll do research like people who got the shit end of the stick for genetics, right? Am I going to penalize them for something they couldn't control? They
Mhm.
just got to deal with for the rest of life? I'm not going to deal with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to penalize for people for shit they could never control. Where they were born, who they were born to, their genetics,
What they
you
look
know,
like,
yeah,
what they sound like.
right? They got
Yeah.
it. Whatever physical, mental, disabilities. I'm not going to make them feel bad. I've definitely done that in the past. I'm a cop out, to that. And
Mhm.
I held myself accountable to just be like, hey, that's not okay. Because I hope one day, for me, if I get to that point, somebody treats me nicely.
Is there a point that you'd like to make before we close that you want to share, that you want to make sure that we get across? This might be the bit that I chop up and gets gone to the internet and Instagram.
I'll say this. Whatever thought you're going through, whatever feeling, whatever you're struggling with, you're not alone. I'm not saying everyone's going through it, but I'm saying there's someone who, in that little bit or bits, they understand. Does that change anything if you know you're not alone? That there's
Yes.
people there's people who are like, I
In the
get you,
mind, it does. Yeah.
right? There might be even people who are like, hey, you know what? I walked that walk. I want to help you because I
Yeah.
remember how much it sucked when I had to walk it by myself. Or when I walked it, someone helped me and I want to pay it forward. How do we build safety and trust, right? Little by little, right?
Sounds
But I'll
like
take
love.
it is love, right?
Yeah.
I can't, I can't believe there's anything better than love in this world because it's something you can't, you can look at your bank account, be like, this is how much money I have. You can't look in your heart and be like, this is how much love I have.
Oh,
You
that's a
can have
pretty
as much
notion.
love, right? You can make more love. Sometimes you'll be like, I'm feeling down and dirty, and maybe not today. I could use some in my direction, and
Hmm.
you ask for it and trust that you'll get some.
Ask for it. Be okay with the vulnerability of saying, I need some loving.
You,
Yeah.
in the especially as Americans or individualistic
Independent.
men,
Yeah.
right? Um, I've never done a single thing in my life by myself.
Mm.
Never. I watch it. My education, there were teachers, there were peers, the people who wrote the books, the people who made the books, people who made the roads, people power lines, every little thing, right? I learned everything from YouTube. YouTube, all the engineers who made YouTube, the person who made the video, who did the editing, right?
Right.
Um, the friends who supported me or believed me, and all these things. I've never done a single thing in my life alone. I just haven't. And when I have that narrative, it's like, oh, we do great shit together.
Yeah. It feels like the emotional intelligence and together with harm reduction, all it is pretty much just love and grace and having the perspective of not positivity to say blanket, but the perspective of the individual experience, having no emotional attachment already to the experience. You're deciding what to feel. That,
And
am I right? That seems like more like that's emotional intelligence. No matter what's happening, this is this particular person, this particular moment.
I don't, a very gentle correction is I don't think I choose what I feel.
Mm-hmm,
It's more
mm-hmm.
about I'm gonna be observant and honest how I feel. And when I when I know that much, then I can be like, well, what do I want to do about it? If I'm not even honest with that, and I
Mm,
know because I work with people, right, who are not honest with that, and
yeah,
they're not, to be clear, their dishonesty is not malicious or
yeah.
whatever. It could just, like I said, shame, fear,
Same.
anxiety,
Self-preservation.
right? And I'm just like I said, I'm not going to penalize someone for not being honest, for being afraid to look deep in because they're afraid, oh, there's some shit there and I don't know if I'm going to make it through. I don't know if I'm going to have support. And so I'm just going to, push it.
Put it
Yeah.
aside.
Right.
Act like it's not happening and be like a supposed strong person just because I'm not dealing.
Yeah. And it's like,
Mm,
it takes, the example I use, funny enough, is like if you have a dog or you or whatever, and you poop in a corner and you covered it with a bowl, right? That shit's still there. That shit still stink just because you're not looking at it, right? And that's
oh,
some
that's every issue that we got in us. Don't put the
right,
bowl on the shit.
right. And if your dog poops again, now you got 2 bowls, right? And it's like, okay, fine. At some point, there's 100 bowls. You can't even walk around in your house without
Smells
tripping up
awful. You got to
the
handle.
smell. And that's why it's like, I hope you can handle it early. I'm not going to penalize people again if it took them a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years before they even
Mm,
saw it, let alone start the journey to heal it, grow it, evolve it.
heal it.
It's not my story. Why am I going to make people feel bad about it? I'm happy that they even started down the road at all.
To awareness, the
Hmm.
awareness part.
Yeah, because
That's hard.
when you're, I'll tell you this, when you're kind to yourself, it's so much easier to be kinder to other people. It's so much easier to receive kindness.
Sorry.
No worries.
Um, my phone started ringing. I hope that I can have you back maybe next month.
Yeah.
And I'll have some more questions and some more. We can talk some more about your chemical engineering and your degrees and talk a little bit further. I hope that I can have you back.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for giving these nuggets of wisdom, because I feel like I learned how not to judge myself or others. And I used to think before this conversation that I was the least judgmental. So thank you for letting me see that it is an individual thing. It's
Yeah.
not there's if the angry or sad or loneliness or whatever I'm
Mhm.
feeling or somebody else, there's the reaction doesn't even need to happen.
Right?
Only love and understanding.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I'm going to give you a little bit of hard time, but you said, "Oh,
Okay.
I'm the least judgmental." The
I used to
least
think
is a
that until
judgment on your
now.
judgmental. It's a
Oh
comparison.
man.
You're judging everyone else against yourself.
Yeah.
That is just rife with judgment.
Yeah. I know. That's what I'm saying. I used to until this conversation, I really thought that as a judgment, look at that, as a judgment, I was judging myself, saying I'm the least judgmental, which means that I've been judging a lot of people to be more judgmental than me. When what I actually, I guess, would mean to say is that I feel less negatively, I
Mhm.
guess, for others than I would believe, but I'm still judging there too. So going back to what I learned today is individual moments, uh, not chosen, but perspectives of love and
Mhm.
the perspective of grace,
Mhm.
uh, and that's intelligent. That's emotional
Yeah.
intelligence.
I'll be real with you. I definitely judge people too. I used to. I still do. I ain't no monk. I probably will in the future. But what do I do with that judgment? How does it
Mhm.
shape how I treat people? Right? I can be like, I didn't like your hat, but I'm not going to tell you I don't like your hat. I'm not going to call the hat ugly. I'm just like, oh, you know what? I judged a little bit,
Yeah.
but I'm glad they felt good enough to wear that hat.
It's
I
none
feel
of your business.
it's none of my business. I'm glad that they're expressing themselves in the way that they want to, and that makes them feel the most them. If it's not
Yes.
their haircut, if it's not their outfit, if they're not their tattoos, if
Yeah.
it's whatever, right? None of my business.
Let everyone be and
Mhm,
only offer the love and offer the
mhm.
ear to listen or
Yep.
whatever you need. What do they need to
If I
feel
have
better
capacity, if I have
if you
capacity,
have the
give.
capacity?
If I have
Yeah.
need, ask.
Yes. Let's have you back on to talk more about emotional intelligence because I think that's helping the world be a better place.
So,
Uh you guys go visit his website, go learn more about the thriving turtle, see maybe how you could possibly be of help. Contact Mr. Howie. No, let me stop saying Mr. Contact Howie.
yeah.
And thank you so much for this time and this awareness. I feel like I feel better, and I
Yeah.
didn't think I felt anything at all, but I feel like I've done inner work just in this time. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And again, I didn't do anything by myself. Thank you for putting this together. Thank you for, you know, reaching out, wanting to make this happen, recording, all that. I appreciate it all.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to do it again soon. There's more information, more compassion to share, more tools to share. However it is that I can be of assistance, always here. And thank you again. This was the Mimi Show, you guys, with Howie Zuo, chemical engineer and emotional intelligence coach with the thrivingturtle.com. Uh, Nothing but love. Thank you so much, Howie.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Bye.